welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we return to our In Memoriam feature with sexual men we didn't want to die.
Yep, we're throwing a little Valentine's Day / homoerotic twist on this In Memoriam. We thought, it's the season of love. We might as well throw back to some sexual men, no pun intended, that have graced the screens of horror.
And also making sure, if you've listened to our podcast before, we've got, in terms of sexual men, we've mentioned them several times throughout our running time.
We have.
We've had constant discussions about different men being this level of sexual. Some of those who may make it onto this list. So I won't mention anyone said so far, although we did battle one out recently about a certain sexual man.
Yes. I actually did have Gary Oldman's Dracula as an honourable mention. If we'd have done this episode and we hadn't have covered Dracula, I definitely would have mentioned Gary Oldman's Dracula as a sexual man who I didn't want to die. I know we battled to great lengths in that episode, so if you haven't checked it out, go check out our must-see horror on Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, so and there may also be battles in this one. We may disagree on someone who is a sexual man, or we might be safe. So the sexual man, as you said, is not necessarily a homoerotic thing, although
it can be.
It can be. It's the kind of person that has an allure, a charm. A rugged good luck that you can't quite get past, which is why I didn't say Gary Oldman was one in Dracula.
And yet, I would disagree. He was suave, he was handsome, he was well dressed, he had the allure of the sexual man. He pounds as a wolf, He pounds as a wolf.
He pounds as a wolf is probably the closest bit that got him towards sexual man. Now, and as I said, it's not necessarily that, but he is the kind of person that, if he suddenly appeared in front of you, not saying you'd go for it as both being straight males, but there's probably a good chance they'll end up banging.
Yeah, they'll end up banging
because they'll get whatever they want. That's the point of these sexual men. Now, obviously, this is In Memoriam, so it is people we did not want to die. So for whatever reason, they didn't make it to the end of their horror films. So. Do you want to do your cheap plug before we go?
As always, if you've enjoyed listening to the episodes, or this is your first time checking us out, please remember to hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. I've got a bit of a cough at the moment, so that may pitter throughout the episode, but please do not let that affect your rating or the fact that you subscribe. I'm just a sickly prince sometimes, And with that, I'll hand over to you, Epo, for the first sexual man that we didn't want to die.
So my first sexual man that I didn't want to die is a big rip for more than one reason. I wanted to honour him for this episode, and he may be one that I think might have been made onto your list. I'm not sure, but mine is Dylan from Predator.
Oh yeah,
Rip Carl Weathers.
Rip Carl Weathers, man.
Yeah, it seemed like a good opportunity to mention the sad passing of Carl Weathers in our podcast.
Yeah,
and also the fact that he is a truly, I think, sexual man.
Yeah,
and I'd like to hear you fight that.
No, I would agree, man. He's a true sexual man.
I mean, there is a true energy, and I don't know any man or woman who wouldn't want a piece of that, especially when you see him and Arnold first meet each other.
That is true.
You son of a bitch.
Then they just swap it together,
You know the meme, you've seen the film.
Yeah.
But managing experience in Carl Weathers in his true glory.
And it is Prime Weathers, isn't it?
It is. He is amazing in the role. He is perfect in that role. Now, Carl Weathers, to be fair, when I was younger, I sometimes, sadly, used to get mixed up with Billy D. Williams in Batman. I thought he was Two-Face in Batman. I just thought Carl Weathers did all these films. Because there was a certain similarity in my head when I was young. So for ages, until I rewatched Batman Returns later and realised, wait, that's not Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
That's Billy D. Williams. But There was something about his charm in all of his films. He had this swagger from Rocky, when one of the earliest times I think I ever saw him was in Rocky, and he had that proper charm that kind of led up the screen. While even though Apollo Creed was meant to be technically, he's like the opposition, you kind of can root for both characters, and that's why he kind of turned from a like side character into an actual like full-on part of the franchise going forward. And it's the same here. Although he is a side character, and he definitely is, because Arnold is everything. Arnold in Predator. You know what I mean? He has to get as many shots in as he can, because he's Arnold.
Yeah.
But he holds his own, and that includes muscles.
He does, to be fair, man.
Measuring the two arms is a hard feat to get. But obviously, in Predator, as he's in this episode, Dylan does not make it through the whole film, and he gets quite a brutal offing in the film.
Yeah,
He gets one of his arms blasted off, and then he's left with that before he gets finished off properly by the Predator with his blade. So it's a proper brutal dispatching, and I think it's because I think Carl Weathers is more recognisable to me in this film. So although you may expect him to die, you kind of wonder whether, like, he is so matching almost in form of Arnold that you're kind of wondering, is he going to be one of the few that makes it out? So when he gets blasted, and not like one of the last to get blasted and killed either, that's the thing. It comes earlier in the film than I think you might expect.
It's kind of middle of the pack, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you don't expect him to go that soon, especially as he's like one of the only characters that has a bond with Arnold.
Yeah.
You kind of think in the film, actually, it's gonna be him and Arnold gunning out at the end.
Gunning out, shirts off, gunning out.
Just the muscles rippling.
And
just going at Predator. And sadly, that's not the way we get. Although I would have loved to see that. As well. Just them like fully like mudded up, just like battling. Just basically a mud fight between them and the Predator. I'm sure there's many ladies out there that would like to be in the middle of that mud fight.
Yeah.
And Rob.
You know, it's Carl Weathers, man. And it's, you know, he did pass recently. My first exposure to him was obviously was Dylan. Obviously, I remember that. But then it was also Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
You know, I can never remember that. And then obviously saw him in Arrested Development, and I just thought he was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
he's so
cooking up a stew. Yeah. I fucking love Rip Carl Weathers. And
he was so good. That's what I mean. Like action, I've seen him in some drama, I've seen him in some comedy, and he was good at all of them. I gotta be honest, he was also very underrated, because there was a big period there where I felt like you didn't see Carl Weathers at all in anything. Like, he just disappeared, like in the way that like he just wasn't like established the same way. You know what I mean? In one way, I don't want to say really he's a better actor than Stallone or Arnold, do you know what I mean? So
of course,
he is a better actor because they're for their niche, whereas he could actually have more range than either of those two guys can. So it's kind of sad when he's the one, whereas they kind of became these non-stop mega stars.
Yeah,
because Carl Weathers was never quite like leading man.
No, I'm trying to remember what else he kind of did apart from obviously the big kind of action hitters, you know. Apart from Rocky, and
I think he did that's what I mean. I think he did a lot of kind of dramas and action films around that time in the 90s. I just can't think of much around like post that, like early 2000s and stuff. I can't think of it. Like the latest I think I can think is him in Happy Gilmore, and then obviously coming back in Arrested Development in mid 2000s, and then Mandalorian in the last few years.
Yeah, I guess I always forget. I mean, I never watched Mandalorian, but I did hear this. Carl Weathers was in it.
He is, but so. A sad passing, but also a brutal offing for a very, very sexual man.
Yeah, he was. And I mean, my first sexual man is more of a modern day sexual man. So it is Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi, as Jackson Hole in X.
Now, I like this. Yeah,
I fucking love that character, man.
Yeah.
I know we spoke about Pearl recently. I believe that was the last episode we did. So another cheap plug. Go and check out our thoughts on that. But I mean, this is my main exposure to Kid Cudi, to be honest. I know the song Day and Night, and I know like he does music. But in terms of acting, I don't really know any other thing that he's done apart from this. And when I found out that it was Kid Cudi, who was Jackson Hole, which I think is just such a funny name for this kind of like poor character, man. He's just such a smooth, suave character, you know.
Yeah.
He's stacked. I love like the outfits they give him in. It's like a very stereotypical, like almost like kind of Black Dynamite.
Yeah, it's like
blaxploitation
kind of,
and he's got like the mustache and like the afro, of course. But I mean, not only does he turn in a great performance, but he plays like this smooth, suave guy who just pounds every woman in the film. Classic sexual man, you know. You just like,
you can't deny that every woman wants a piece of him.
Everyone's a piece, you know. And he's so good in that film. And then you get the scene. This is probably, apart from pounding the three women in the film, this probably signifies him as the sexual man, where the old guy Howard comes to like look for Pearl, and he's like, "Come and help me have a look, Jackson Hole." And Jackson Hole is just like strutting out in a pair of jeans or like a pair of like tighty whities in a swamp, you know. In a swamp, there's a crocodile about, but he don't care. And then his death is just, you know, shotgun to the chest.
It's quick.
It's a quick and it's a brutal one. And when I was watching it, when I watched X for the first time, I completely missed it. It was so quick that I was just like, surely they're not gonna.
He's bang and gone, isn't it?
Yeah, he's bang and gone. It's not like Jackson Hole, you know. I was thinking, surely they're not just gonna do that. Like, just a quick. It takes you back how quick it is. But I thought that Jackson Hole was such like a good sexual man, you know.
He's really like, that's the other thing. It's just because you go Kid Cudi and what is it, Scott McCudie? I think it is actually.
Maybe I
missed
messed
it.
Yeah, I definitely.
I think it's something like that. But the character himself, like, again, what's quite good about that film and also about the way they've written that character, or just his performance, is the fact that there is more than one layer to it.
Yeah.
Like, on one level, he is this charming, like, fucking, like, I can make love to anyone I want to.
Yeah.
You know, you all want a piece of this, and every woman's going to want to see my dick.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's also that kind of, you know, because the Vietnam side of it and the racial insensitivity which comes through Pearl's husband Howard. Is kind of there, that like this bubbling pot throughout the film but it's also the fact that no matter what he feels from Howard, and he knows that Howard's got a bit of a racial kind of about him, and yet he's still there, like helping, he still has a proper conversation, and you can tell that because of the Vietnam War, you can see that kind of slight kind of under the layer kind of more vulnerable character that is there.
It's a bit of edge to him as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He has a little something like, he's like, I'm not just taken down so easy, so he's got like, he's quite fleshed out, even though it's not like he's in tons of scenes actually.
No,
but he is quite fleshed out in the few scenes. I think he probably makes the biggest impact of like one of the fewer like smaller side characters. If you think about the cameraman, Church Mouse, all those kind of ones, they don't quite make as big an impact, I don't think, as he does.
No, him and Brittany Snow have this. They turn in great performances. They have great dynamics, and they also have this kind of like slightly tragic element to them at the same time. When you look, like, Brittany Snow gives that speech about like enjoying life basically, and being free and being young and all of that kind of stuff whilst you can, and then knowing that, you know, Jackson Hole, he would have gone off and spent like much of his, probably like his 20s, because I think I get the impression he's supposed to be like 30s, late 30s. He would have spent like a good chunk of his life going to fight in Vietnam, you know, and it's that whole thing of like, at the time you would have had a lot of racial tensions and being conscripted, going and fighting, and then coming back and being like, I have to adjust to regular life. I've probably seen shit out there, so I'm just gonna enjoy life whilst I can, just make porn banging, you know. And I think his character is just so good, and it's a good modern day sexual man to kick off the list, because I have my other two sexual men are 80s throwbacks. I will give you a little tease there, just to keep your tease.
There you go. If I don't ruin it by throwing one
if
in
you
there,
don't,
because mine, I've got
a few. We've got a few. I thought we may have some sexual men who cross over.
And you also mentioned Brittany Snow, sexual woman. List coming soon.
List coming soon. Yeah.
Keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah.
Right, so my number 2, and this is this is the one I think that you might be on yours, but I was turned by this. It was a film I hadn't seen.
Okay.
That you had seen and you said was amazing. And we had a big old episode about this and also comparing it to another very similar vampire film.
Okay, yeah.
You know who I'm going to
I knew who you were going to say.
And we mentioned this man in the episode and he kind of got it. I don't know if he was on your list, but Jerry Dandridge from Friday. I thought
I
he might
fucking
be.
love Jerry Dandridge.
I thought like because I'd never seen it before and you had, and you'd sold how good Jerry Dandridge was in this film, and I was just like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. And I watched the one where we watched Lost Boys. I watched Lost Boys before, and I was like, I was kind of underwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
And I also did not find even in that, like, although he's a great performer, I didn't find Kiefer Sutherland to be quite as much the sexual man as I thought he might be, and things like that. So I was like, yeah. But Jerry Dandridge fucking owns this film. Like literally, like there are many good like performances and parts I really like about this film. But this film is fucking nothing without Jerry Dandridge's performance.
Yeah, he's incredible, man.
Yeah, he owns it so well. I know there was the remake with Colin Farrell in the role, and I can't remember. I've seen it, and I can't remember it well enough to think. But I don't remember having the impact like Jerry Dandridge does in this.
Colin Firth is a certified sexual man.
Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Firth. I mean, Colin Firth is a sexual man in his own way.
He's a sexual man.
You know, he is.
He's the British sexual.
He
man,
is a British sexual man. You know what I mean? I think we recently discussed British sexual, like Richard E. Grant and Hugh Grant and Colin Firth. They're more of a stuttering kind of very sexual. If I pull it out, will you touch it?
Yeah, will you, if I take out my penis, would you look at it? You know? I think because I was
Jerry Dandridge is more my penis is out and you're going to play with it.
Touch it. Yeah,
in a non-Weinstein way.
Yeah, non-Weinstein.
Well, actually, he's a vampire killer, so maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But he has more of a charm with him.
Oh yeah, like there's some points where obviously we open up and he's got like the beautiful women. Like the prostitutes that he's hiring who are disappearing, and then you get like one scene that many scenes that certify him as a sexual man, but there's obviously that great one where he says I think I can't remember the character's name, Evil Ed says to Charlie Brewster like the most important thing is the vampire can't come into your house unless he's invited. And then it cuts to him being at home and his mum's like, oh, there's somebody here to meet you. And we hear like the Fright Night theme, like, and then like the sexual man's hand as he's like, hello, Charlie. You know, and it's like, you fucking smooth talker.
It's also the fact that Mum wants to bang him
Mum
like
wants
crazy.
to bang him
like
as well,
so
you know?
bad. And, like there are certain characters in this film, and I can't remember what her name is, the girlfriend. Who is more in a kind of a trance of the vampiric kind of trance, whereas Mum ain't in that trance. Mum just wants to bang Jerry. You know what I mean? Yeah, many women I'm sure did.
As many did.
It's a really powerful, charming performance that he puts in this film. He looks amazing. The outfits, costumes that he's in are just, you know what I mean, those high collars, that 80s kind of look. And he goes for a range of different ones, or even those tight tops that I love.
Yeah, he's got the knitted jumper in one. You know, he's got like that grey cloak, grey leather jacket with the red scarf. Yeah. There's some homoeroticism with his classic. You know.
That's what I mean. He's got his own little bang boy.
He's got his bang boy, two best friends
who just follows him around like on his knees, basically.
Yeah.
And like just all of that stuff is just like he has this allure, and it just is. It's something that you need to have that if you're going to go for that proper kind of sexual version of like that kind of vampiric. If they're fully going into that, like you need to have that charm and allure. And some people can't always pull it off, but he can pull it off.
He can pull it off, man. He can pull it off.
And you'd let him too. So, but his death. So his death, finally, Charlie managed to get him down into the basement, and they managed to open up the lights. But it's the amazing part of the build-up. There is a long-ass, I think, when we talked about it, we said there is a long-ass confrontation that happens. It's the only thing that's slightly dragged, I remember saying, for me in the film. But it does have a really cool ending. And when he turns, like, bat form, and it has that classic 80s, like, reminded me, like, of when the gremlin melting at the end. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of disgusting, like, he's getting destroyed. His own body's
Turns
breaking down,
like
and
green slime and
yeah. It's a really cool death, but I think at the same time, like I know that there's a Fright Night 2 of the original, which I haven't seen.
No, there isn't, and I am planning on watching it because I think Charlie Brewster's in it, and Peter, Peter, whatever his name, old man,
Roddy McDowell, is it?
Yeah, Roddy McDowell.
Yeah.
But they end
real actor name.
Yeah, they end up moving somewhere.
Yeah,
and
it's like a college. I think he goes to college.
Yeah, it's his Jerry Dandridge's sister.
Oh, is it? Oh, really?
Which is interesting.
That's interesting. It's just hard to see it without Jerry Dandridge,
without Chris Sarandon.
And that's kind of one of the main parts of why you kind of don't want him to die, like because I think he's you almost leave the film and he's like your favourite character.
Yeah,
which is weird. Like you're voting for him because he puts Charlie through some shit. To be fair,
yeah,
and he changes a lot of people and he basically bangs his girlfriend.
He just pipes his girlfriend.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So it's like you shouldn't, but you do. You just like him, and when he is destroyed, it's not that it's not cool, but at the same time, I almost would have liked to have seen more stories of Jerry Dandridge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They should have followed this up with the second one where it's just Jerry Dandridge before Charlie. That's what the second one should have been. Fright Night should have been Jerry Dandridge piping a bunch of lasses and just killing.
Oh, yeah, because they kind of tease that he's not dead at the end.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a... So that's what I mean. It's always hard but I would still keep him as dead for now. For he did not return in Fright Night 2.
Yeah, that's true.
The lesser film. But I think I had another one on my list where I was like, technically they're not dead, but anyway, that is my second choice.
That's a good one.
Stealing one of yours.
You are. You stole one of mine, and now I've got to go to kind of. This one is. This is an interesting one because this is more of you like the actor more than the character, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
The character was a confirmed sexual man, but for two roles, the actor, and it's got to be an obvious one, but it's Kevin Bacon. It's the
Kevin
Bacon man.
I didn't think about Bacon.
Yeah, Bacon, a classic sexual man. Like
who doesn't want some sizzling bacon?
Yeah, he's sizzling bacon. But there's two roles. One where he's he's very much the good guy. Yeah, and that's I think Jack, the counsellor in Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
he's a sexual man. He's got that he's got a vest on. He's got them kind of high-waisted jeans. I think he's shirtless at one point throughout the film.
It's his first performance.
It's his first performance.
And he's charming.
He's charming. He's young Bacon. I think he pounds in the film. Always good.
I have got to make a guess though. Is the other one a rapist?
Yeah,
basically a rapist.
Basically a rapist. The other one is Hollow Man.
Yeah, I was going to say the film where you don't see him for a lot of the film.
You don't see him, but his character Sebastian something in that film is this sex-mad womanizer who is real charming and smooth and sleazy. Yes, he does become a rapist later on in the film, but that's purely because the Hollow Man toxin has affected his brain, but this is the actor, he turns in, kind of great performances in both of them as through the sexual man lens. I mean, his death is brutal in Friday the 13th.
One of the most brutal.
Classic arrow through the throat.
Yeah.
I don't really care so much about his character in that. However, in Hollow Man, I think he's such a good villain, He really leans into his kind of horrid kind of tendencies and this egomaniac. That he's a fucking bellend in the lead up to it, but he's got that charm. He's got that 90s Bacon vibe to him, the leather jacket, always dressed in black, classic Matrix style shades he wears. And he's kind of a bit of a bellend, but he's got that charm to him. He's shagging one of the scientists. He's got a certain
confidence about him that he's just
he's a sexual man.
I can do as I please. I can do this because I'm Kevin Bacon.
Because I'm Kevin Bacon. Fuck. And then he takes the Hollow Man serum, classic film, and he ends up going on and becoming a rapist and a murderer, but he leans into it and he's quite a fun kind of villain. And I know they did make a Hollow Man 2,
another direct to a direct
I believe
DVD
a direct
kind of
DVD one, and it's kind of similar where I think I read the plot synopsis for some reason like 10 years ago, and it's stuck in my head. Where basically like a soldier who comes back from war, like his girlfriend has left him for another man or something, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna go Hollow Man, and then he becomes Hollow Man.
I'm just gonna go Hollow Man.
I'm just gonna go Hollow Man. It's just how you do it, you know. And then he ends up going mental, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, he could have just gone back to war. He would have been pretty badass.
Yeah,
Hollow Man at war.
Hollow Man at war,
just destroying people.
But it's you know, I think he's a fun villain, and it's a shame that, you know, he does get such a brutal dispatching, because I would have loved if they had like a tease that he'd survived.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Just a little. You
can't quite see me.
You can't quite see me. Maybe I'm still there. You know.
I always fit a fairly sexual man, but not in this role, who is in that film, and I always forget he's in this film because it was before he kind of broke out big again. Is Josh Brolin. Who's in the film, and I always forget he's in this film.
Yeah, he kind of plays.
He's like he's kind of the good. He's the good guy, but he's a good guy that you kind of don't like as much as Kevin Bacon. No. So he's kind of the opposite. Whereas later on he'd be more of his own. Like but yeah, Josh Brolin. Not that was like his first thing, because he was in Goonies and shit like that. But he kind of was like at the point when he like wasn't really. He was at most he was a side character that you just see occasionally.
Yeah,
it's not until like the 2000s that he broke out big.
They really did it. Yeah.
But good choice, Mr. Bacon.
I do have one more, and I'm hoping you don't fucking steal it, because the last one is peak sexual man. You know.
I mean, I've got a guess of what yours might actually be.
It's probably obvious who it is.
I think so, and I think it's on my list too. So I'm going to avoid it, and I'm going to move. I'm going to shift to another one for you. I think I'm going to have to go with the one only. Now, this role is not technically the one that I guess he's at his peak sexual man.
Yeah.
But he is possibly the most sexual man of all sexual men.
Okay, we will hear.
This is Mr. Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, a confirmed sexual man.
And this is The Fly.
Oh, nice. I was going to say Jurassic Park, classic.
Yeah, he doesn't die.
Yeah.
So yes, he is a horror. He has done his fair few horrors.
Yeah.
And he is in Jurassic Park, but you can't kill Malcolm, Dr. Malcolm. He does not die in Jurassic Park, and he is maybe an uber sexual man in that. I mean, open chest on the table is
insane. Insane. Yeah, open chest on the table. That shirt where like even when he's not, you know, he's like got like 4 buttons undone on that black shirt anyway. You know, but this is 80s Goldblum.
This is 80s Goldblum, and this is 80s Goldblum using that kind of when he was a little bit of a like, and this is almost a film that I think kind of showed him have that kind of almost change in a way, because at the start of the film he almost plays into a type that he'd been playing a little bit before this, which was kind of the slightly nerdier character.
Yeah, the nerdy scientist.
So he is that at the start. So he's not a peak sexual man at the beginning of this film, and he's definitely not at the end of this film.
I don't think he's technically a man at the end of this film.
But after he has gone through the change and his body starts to get some rippling muscles, he's fucking. Then you have him with his like top off, and I mean Gina Davis is fucking like wet to the
she's wet to the core.
I don't know where that comes.
No, that's really sexually explicit. On an episode of Sexual Men, you've crossed the line.
I've crossed the line. I've gone into how much it affects that woman.
Yeah, and Gina, she is a beautiful woman as well.
Yes.
Sexual woman in her
own right. But yeah, there's a certain. He gets this confidence in the film after it happens, doesn't he? He starts to really build up. He just wants to fucking. There's also one part of the film where he's just banging.
Oh yeah,
he's just like I can't stop. He's like
run, isn't it?
It's the point when she's like, I can't. I'm done.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm well past it, and he's like, but I need to keep banging.
Like, I need to keep banging.
What can I bang?
I'm a fly. I have a fly brain. I need to just fuck.
Which is not so I do of a fly that they just want to go around banging things.
Well, I guess it's that thing of like a fly only lives for so long.
Yeah,
and they've just got to keep reproducing them.
So what you're saying is a fly needs to get like in their few days lifespan, they need to get all the banging they need to bang.
Yeah, they need to bang as much as
they're just eating and banging.
It's just all they do. They live the life.
And on top of that, there's also a certain charm that comes with that confidence that he really starts to build up as a character. And you know, there's also kind of something that's kind of you can't quite take your eyes off him on the screen. I think he has he owns the presence in this film, and has some proper brutal scenes in this film, like the arm wrestling thing where he fucking destroys that guy's arm. It's brutal. But obviously the sexual man, he does not die as a sexual man.
No, he doesn't.
As the film goes on, he becomes less of a sexual man. He is this is a film where he comes slightly nerdier, still sexual, but not quite at peak. And then in the middle, it's like
it's peak sexual.
Peak sexual. I was about to say that in this more explicit way. Then I'm going to avoid that again. And then he full on drops under sexual man. Unless that's your thing, that's fine. If that is your sexual man peak,
grotesque bugs.
Yeah. As his skin starts peeling away and bubbling, and he becomes grotesque until he literally becomes a man-fly, where Gina Davis has to basically blast it. Because that's the best thing for all of us. When Jeff Goldblum starts turning ugly, it's time to end it.
You have to end it. And as the old saying goes, you either die a sexual man or you live long enough to grotesquely transform into a bug. It gets all of us, man.
Plenty of banging along the way.
He's probably Resident Evil monster by the end, isn't he?
He is properly brutal. It's a great film, and it's a dispatching. But I think by the end you feel sorry for him, because the intention, like any of these kind of guys, is to try and do something that's going to change the world and do something better. And it doesn't go right, and once he gets fully confident, and also once he gets a bit mad, he turns into a little bit of a dick. But that's kind of part of it. But that's his whole anatomy changing. And then he becomes this disgusting creature. But looking and seeing what he's like, you feel sorry for him, and the fact that he basically tells her to kill him at the end is another reason that you're kind of like, you shouldn't die. It would have been nice, you know where it's going, but at the same time, it's kind of that same monster like American Werewolf in London, where you're like, I kind of wish there was a way to just stop this or change you back, but it's not going to happen.
You're fucked, man.
In American Werewolf, there was more chance of it happening than here. Here, it's like your whole body is broken down. I don't know how you change that.
No, your DNA has been
and if we could stop it now, I don't think you want to stop it now, because what you are is grotesque.
There is a sequel, The Fly 2, about the baby that.
I think all of our films so far have had some kind of a sequel.
I think
Sexual Man, Danny Glover, we didn't mention.
We haven't mentioned Danny Glover, Sexual Man. I think it's Gina, because there is that scene where Gina Davis,
she has a child,
like a fly baby, and that's effectively.
Is Gina Davis in the sequel?
She's in the opening, and I think because they use that.
Because the fly ripped her apart.
I think that's the thing. The fly baby kills her. And then
that kind of adds a sadder layer to the end of this film. At least it's like she's there,
Yeah, and then Fly Baby grows up to be like a fine person, and then starts to mutate. And it's one of those things where it's like it.
So it's a maggot.
It's a maggot boy.
It's a maggot inside of it. Just gives birth to a giant maggot.
Basically, it's a bit rotten, but I do want to watch the sequel.
I haven't seen any of these sequels apart from Predator 2. Of course, I've seen that one. But we need to go and watch some of these crappy sequels, or maybe not crappy sequel. I don't know.
Be better than the original.
Maybe. I feel like that would be a big thing. That's like saying American Psycho 2 is better.
Which obviously that is a sexual man there.
There is as well. He was a consideration for me. And for afterwards, I will mention any of my leftovers, but the ones that didn't make the peak totem pole.
Well, do you want to have a guess at who my last sexual man is?
Mine is. It's Frank from Hellraiser.
It's
right?
Frank Cobb from Hellraiser.
It had to be Frank.
He's the fucking ultimate sexual
I knew that you'd be on his list. Now, Jerry Dandridge and Frank were the two I was like, they're going to be on Rob's list.
Definitely, man.
But I decided to steal one. But I was like, I won't take Frank from you.
Don't take my Frank. He's your
ultimate.
Don't take my Frank. I mean, he's just such a cunt. But
to say, I didn't want him to die. But he's such a cunt.
But he is that thing of like he's this ultimate sexual man, because he's just seeking pleasure wherever he can get it. Like I'm pretty sure in the film they imply that he's like using heroin and using all sorts of crazy drugs.
Oh yeah, non-stop.
Yeah, he's traveling the world to find pleasure, and he finds the lament configuration. But it's also that he makes Hellraiser much more erotic, and he brings like the EastEnders vibe to it, because he's just fucking shagging his brother's. I was about to say his brother's sister, but it's definitely not. He's shagging his brother's wife, you know, and he's just like got her in his thrall. And it gets to the point where Frank ends up going to, obviously, he ends up going to like hell, basically, whichever dimension the Cenobites are from. He ends up escaping and being like this fucking like bone creature, and like not having any skin or anything. And he's like, Julia, my pipe was so good. Have you considered seducing men, killing them, and letting me eat them? Yeah. And then it's not. She's like, yeah, of course. So she does that, and then after he's like, Julia, the pipe is so good, and you know it. Have you thought about killing your husband, my brother, and letting me wear his skin? It's just so fucking insane, you know.
It's weird because. I don't know why. I feel like Frank is almost his most sexual when he's in his skinless face.
Skinless Frank. He's got no skin. He's wearing a shirt for some reason, and he's smoking a cigarette.
This is a man who can allure a woman to do these kind of crazy acts without any skin. That's how good his piping was.
That's how good the pipe is, you know. And I don't even know if when he was skinless, if he had pipe. You know, because I don't know.
You don't see his pipe.
You don't see his pipe.
It must have been. I feel it must have still been there, at least, unless they've removed it in hell, which they may have. That would be his ultimate punishment.
That would be his ultimate punishment. Would be that. and I love that he's the catalyst for not just like the whole story, but this element of like soap opera-ism that the first Hellraiser has. Yeah. You know, because it does. It feels very much like.
The first Hellraiser does it in such a different way. I remember when I first watched it, and I was like, this is not at all the film I was expecting to see. And not in a bad way, it just takes a little adjustment period. Yeah. And then I think one thing I can say definitely about why I wouldn't want him to die, like a reason I could give for that, is because, let's be honest, the sequels are not as good without him. Exactly. None of them live up to, like, yes, there's some amazing stuff in the I really like the second one.
And the second one's good. And Frank's in the second one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it's just not quite as good as the simplicity of there being a character. And it also remembers, which a lot of them forget, they don't forget, but they don't do it in the right way, which is he's like a bad character, but he's a charming character. He's a character you kind of want to see what he does next. Yeah. Him and his psychopathic lover. Yeah. And not Hellraiser, Pinhead is part of that in only a side way. He's only a side character, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's kind of what happened with Hellraiser a little bit, is the fact that the more we've watched of them, not only does it get weaker in story and telling, but also it ups Pinhead in some of them more, which is great. Which is fine and great, but it's kind of like in Pirates of the Caribbean when they made Jack Sparrow front and centre, and it was like you worked because you were this amazing side character. Weird, Not every scene needs to include you. That was what made you so good in the first one. Yeah. Like, you're meant to be the one that comes to get them, so we should be following different, like, these people, which, some of the later sequels, we haven't seen them all yet.
No, we're working our way through them.
But that doesn't include that, because none of them are as good as Frank.
No. And I think Frank would have been a great, like, he would have been a great antagonist, an essential antagonist for a few, like, I don't think you could make 10 films where Frank's sneaking out of hell constantly, just like, I'm out again, you know.
I mean, him sneaking back out every time and just like banging some woman in control. I mean, I feel like some people would be like, "Yes, I'd watch that again."
I'd watch it. Yeah, I'd watch it over and over. But I think that you could have had some kind of story where Frank is the overarching villain, and you can give him reasons for him escaping. Like, I don't know, maybe he's got has more family, like he has a kid or something. Yeah. But I think he would have been a really good overarching villain. Because he has a lot of the ideas of, you know, Hellraiser, of like forbidden pleasure and not knowing the line between pleasure and pain and what will people go to chase it. Yeah. Frank's kind of perfect for that.
He is. It's something that the recent remake, reboot, whatever you call it, just didn't quite get. I think they kind of missed that Frank character. Like, if you're going to, I don't know, reboot it or remake it, it kind of feels like you need to bring back, I'm not saying that they'll do it quite as well, but they could also, I'm sure there are many people who could pull off a fairly good Frank kind of, to bring his character back into the fold and kind of use that story a bit more than it's used in the original, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But it's just, kind of what I thought. I thought like he is the ultimate sexual man. He's so fucking demonic.
If you could make a woman still want to pipe you when you're bones,
yeah, when you're bones,
and then skinless, like then you know that you are owning this. Yeah, he just like what is it about that form of like that muscular skinless form? It's just
handsome,
like many women have fantasies about this man just hopping aboard.
He's just living in the attic.
Yeah,
no skin, feasting on blood. And
yeah, and he's just leaving trails of his own like blood all over the
ground. It's so good.
Doesn't sound sexual at all when you say it like that.
But then you watch it.
You're constantly in there like, is it Kirsty?
Yeah, Kirsty.
You're constantly there like, when's she gonna pipe him? Because like,
he does try and pipe her.
That's what I mean. He does, and he's her uncle.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
And there's a part of you thinking, yeah, at some point you're going to. I will say though, as it lost its budget and went lower and lower and lower. If Frank had retained part of the story, let's just be honest, it would have just turned into pure porn by a certain point. I mean, Hellraiser like 4 or 5 would have just basically been Frank just piping, and Hellraiser just watching and whipping himself.
Yeah, just like all right, when we have the budget for like Doug Bradley to be in like 2 scenes. Yeah, let's just make porn.
Just make porn.
Walk in at the end.
We just won't tell Doug Bradley that who is porn.
Yeah, it's porn.
But at this point, it's just porn, and the original actors left Frank long ago. But so we just have some skinless dude.
some dude in a mortar.
And just bang it. That's all we did, and that's Hellraiser. And yeah, probably would have made better quality film.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. More enjoyable at least. I mean, and that's the sexual men.
That is the sexual men of how. You did actually say how Frank dies.
So Frank does have an amazing death. He does take his brother's skin and start kind of living as him.
Yeah.
It's grotesque. It's amazing. And then Kirsty, opens the box and the Cenobites come for her, and she basically says like, "I know where fucking Frank is. I'll lead you to him." And they find him. They get him to admit that it is, it's Frank.
Yeah.
And then he just gets covered in these hooks, and
it's fucking amazing. It's an amazing, like possibly one of the best horror deaths. Like it's just fucking. It's as brutal as he deserves.
It's as brutal as he deserves.
Looking back, like in the film, you're like, yeah, I was waiting for you to die in one way, and you get the brutalest of deaths,
and it is amazing,
which is deserved in many ways, but. On the other side, on reflection, you are a bit like, yeah, but it would have been better if you kept coming back.
Well, that's the thing. You see him and he gets Jesus wept, which is great. And then you see him in the second one, and I didn't expect to see him at all. And when he pops up, I was like, oh my god, it's fucking Frank, the man himself.
We're
doing this. And then I think he very easily gets tricked, or he easily gets dispatched or something.
Yeah.
But the idea that like if you're in this place where it's just pain, and you don't end up living or dying, you're just there tortured forever. The idea of him escaping again, or tricking the Cenobites again, or maybe even eventually becoming a Cenobite, but then escaping, lying to them and doing it that way, I think would have been a really good way to go. I think he would have been such a good antagonist, as opposed to they try and bring the sleaze in. Like I know we've. The third one we enjoyed. The fourth one and the fifth one, as it goes on, it's like it gets
weaker and weaker. It does, and even when it's not, it's just some of them. The fourth one wasn't too bad. It tried something. It doesn't pull it off, but it tried. Then after that, to be honest, most of them have been somewhat entertaining, some of them, but mainly just not good.
They can't pull off a sexual man.
No, and they just can't. And apart from the second one, which I do have because of the way they build up the dreamscape or whatever you call the hell world. Apart from what they do with that one, to be honest, after that one, they are kind of all just thrown away.
Yeah, like what was the? I mean, I was about to say which is the one where it's the main character is a disgruntled and sleazy detective, and
that's like two.
That's basically all of them.
That's like the third one and the fifth one and the sixth one. I think.
Yeah, I think it was the one I'm thinking of was the one with Dean Winters, where they're trying to make Dean Winters a sexual man, and it's like Dean Winters isn't gonna be a sexual man.
No,
he ain't gonna be a sexual man. I'm afraid he's trying. He just doesn't have it.
He just hasn't done it. No, he just can't pull it off. And the story, I remember, just some of the stories just make no sense, or you can just tell that they weren't Hellraiser films.
No,
they just tacked on him into it. And we will finish. We're not that far off now, are we? We've got like one or two left, I think.
I think
maybe.
Well, I think we said 3, and then we do our honourable mentions. Oh yeah. I thought
no.
The Hellraisers.
Hellraisers.
I thought you meant the episode.
We're done. We
are
have done our 3.
We'll do our honourable
sexual
mentions.
men. So honourable mentions. Yeah. So who did you have on your?
I did. I had. It's gone now. But I had. The name has actually escaped me now. I'm afraid.
I will jump in.
Yeah,
with
you
mine.
jump in. You say the day.
I had Kurt Russell in The Thing.
Yeah.
I
sexual man.
Again, you don't definitely that I mentioned earlier. I had one on my list that didn't definitely know that he died. They died.
Yeah.
But it's presumed, and he may even be just being alien at the end.
Maybe,
we don't know who it is. But yeah, Kurt Russell in The Thing, and also another film that I've mentioned recently, a more modern one, is David from The Guest.
Yes. I thought he might be on yours. Rather sexual man, and a modern one.
A modern one.
So one that I had was Tom Atkins, classic sexual man.
Of course, Tom Atkins. I didn't even think of Mr. Tom Atkins.
Mr. Tom Atkins. The film is Night of the Creeps. I know you haven't watched it. So sorry, I'm not going to throw a spoiler out there about a sexual man. And then the other, which is a first role, and this is a very definitive man of the sexual man of the 70s, and maybe onwards. But I couldn't really get him to be, like that. We didn't want him to die, and it was John Travolta in Carrie.
Oh yeah.
You know, sexual man. He was peak sexual man. But
sexual man, but he's
But
not a character that you don't want to die in the film, is he? Yeah,
which is why he was on there, but he was more.
You want them all to die.
I want them all to die, even Carrie. I want bloodbath.
I want the bloodbath. Yeah. Right. Well, so that's about it. So get in touch and tell us if you are interested in telling us your thoughts on your own sexual men, and I will hand over to Robbie to wrap us up.
Yeah, well, that's our little tribute to some sexual men to end off the Valentine's/love season. Come and let us know your favourite sexual men in horror on Twitter and Instagram.
Send pictures.
At CMTH Podcast. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. We seem to be getting more subscribers on Spotify, which is cool.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can get to 25 reviews on there by the end of April, June, whatever.
That's your challenge. Hack it.
That's your challenge. You can do. I'll hack it and I'll just forge them. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.